Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Last session of the forum, and this one will not disappoint. We've got a great group of speakers for you, and a very engaging topic on how we're going to build talent and culture. Before I jump into that and introduce your moderator, I just want to say thank you very much to John Lewis and Entos. We've appreciated working with John over a number of years. He's a past BioAlberta Achievement Award winner, and watching the journey that Entos and John are on, coupled with Providence and the work they're doing, the vaccine journey, as he said, it really is a race, but it's a marathon and one that's with us for a long time. But on to building the talent and culture that we need in Alberta to move the entire sector forward and lift up. Want to introduce to you our moderator for today, Daria Horbe. Daria is the Senior Manager for Access and Government Relations for Pfizer Canada. Daria's been involved in the pharma industry for many years and has witnessed firsthand the tremendous changes the industry has undergone, not only scientifically, but structurally. Daria works with all levels of stakeholders in industry and government. She has a keen appreciation for the value of working with stakeholders to develop policies and partnerships to support the health of Albertans. Not only is Pfizer a good partner of ours, but Daria is a trusted advisor and someone that we should probably use more, Daria, but we're happy to seek her advice, counsel, and with the Pfizer team anytime. So with that, Daria, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Rob, and always a pleasure to work with you, so thank you. Welcome everyone to this session. We've got a great lineup of speakers for you, and look forward to your questions. At the BioAlberta Showcase and Gala in 2019, a strategy entitled Bridging the Life Sciences Talent Gap was released. We at Pfizer were proud to support that paper. The paper explored the gap in skills that new graduates in STEM and life sciences have when seeking employment. Thereafter, a number of stakeholders were identified and initiatives launched to address not only some of the gaps that were identified in the paper, but more importantly, to work collaboratively to develop Alberta's life sciences innovation talent and culture ecosystem. Today, we will hear from a number of those stakeholders. We'll start with a keynote from Rob Henderson of BioTalent Canada. And after Rob's presentation, we have three additional presenters. Anne Badbino of Innovative Medicines Canada, Jennifer Dochin of Campus Alberta Neuroscience, and Reg Joseph of Health City, who will each share their perspective as well. We'll then open it up for a Q&A with all four of the speakers. So I encourage you to write your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get started. Rob Henderson is the President and CEO of BioTalent Canada and has more than 25 years of experience in both the private and public sector management. He's transformed BioTalent Canada into an in-demand partner, policy influencer, and project leader that brings together Canada's largest national bioeconomy network. Under Rob's guidance, BioTalent Canada has engaged with government, employers, associations, post-secondary institutions, immigrant servicing agencies, and service providers. This dynamic network strengthens skills, connects job-ready talent to industry, and creates opportunities. It provides industry with funding, HR resources, and labor market intelligence to help companies build strong teams and provide talent a competitive edge in starting their careers. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Daria. I appreciate that. I'm just going to share my slideshow here. I just want to start off with thank you very much to BioAlberta for providing this forum and for such a great topic. It's very gratifying for us to see our provincial partners delving in so deeply on a deep dive on how to build culture and talent. Because of course, you know, being in the biotech industry, it's all about the science, but we forget. So the definition of science is the study of the natural world. And to our knowledge, there's only one species on the face of the planet Earth that can study anything. So actually science does begin with people. Without people, there can be no science. So we, as Daria mentioned, are a national not-for-profit association that deals specifically with human resources and building talent within the biotech industry. Let's see where we are. There we are. Our vision is that the Canadian bioeconomy is people-focused, a career of choice, and a driver of the Canadian economy. You notice there's some words highlighted there because it's a bit of a hierarchy. It's people-focused. Science, as I mentioned, cannot be done without people. So like it or not, the biotech industry is a people business. We want it to be a career of choice. We want our students, we want our young people to be looking at the biotech industry as a vibrant, dynamic career, and not to be an ambulance chaser, but a little bit where the pandemic has occurred, it's given us that a little bit of that opportunity. The entire globe is looking at the biotech industry to save the world. And the good news is we will. But we also hope that that'll inspire people to take a look at the industry more as a career of choice for them and for their peers. And then finally, and not least importantly, it's a driver of the Canadian economy. In many ways, the entire industry has been able to pivot and helped spur the economic recovery within Canada. In many areas, biotech is booming. We want that to continue to make sure that it continues to be people focused. But what are we talking about here? We're talking about a slide deck that doesn't work. There we go. So a little bit about the definition of the bioeconomy. Biotalent Canada takes a very inclusive definition of the bioeconomy. We subdivide it into 4 different subsectors. The largest, of course, the elephant in the room, if you will, is biohealth. It employs 80 to 85% of the more than 200,000 individuals within the bioeconomy around Canada. And then, of course, especially in Alberta, 3 very vibrant subsectors that thrive in Canada, and especially in Alberta: agrobiotech, bioenergy, and bioindustrial. So what do we do? A lot of what we do is providing professional development for advancement so that people can plan their careers and map them out. We also implement national occupational standards so that there's a consistency to job descriptions and skills across the country. This assists in immigration, in commonplace hiring activities, and in labor mobility from province to province. Talent management, we provide compensation guides. We provide the nation's only bilingual biotechnology job board, the Petri dish on our website, et cetera, all the way along. And all of these things to be that catalyst for growth in the human resources in the bioeconomy. We do this through more than 70 partners, corporate partners across the country. Organizations like Innovative Medicines Canada, like Bio Alberta, like Edmonton Health City, all of these organizations that have partnered with us. Why? Because they realize that the people question, the culture question, the talent question is at the forefront. But you know what's interesting within the biotech? 80% of the SMEs that we deal with are, 80% of the companies in the biotech industry are SMEs that are small and medium-sized enterprises. As a result, we have a lot of scientists doing HR. And while they're very dedicated individuals, it's not what they've been trained for. And that's where we come in. We help them with some of their HR. And because these scientists are involved in a lot of things for which they were never trained, there's sometimes training lacking. There's sometimes onboarding mechanisms, HR platforms that are missing from their offerings. That's where we come in. And what we found, and when we're talking about building talent and culture, is besides linking and partnering with some of the fastest growing biotech companies across Canada, we've also partnered with academic institutions across Canada. Now, there's a reason for this. Our unemployment rate amongst young people across Canada is one of the highest of any industries. And that's really concerning because to work in biotech, as you know, we're one of the most educated verticals that there are. As a result of that, you'd think that these people would be able to be they would be very attractive to new employers. However, there seems to be a gulf. As much as our post-secondary institutions are second to none in the world in teaching the theory of science, they sometimes fall short on teaching the business of science. Those technical and essential skills that are really fundamental for especially a small biotech startup that they need. It's very difficult for them to have access to the onboarding techniques or even the capital to be able to invest 6 to 9 months salary in a new grad or a student in order to bring them into their corporate culture. So that's where a lot of our work has gone. In the last couple of years, a couple of exciting developments have occurred. Spearheaded by the federal government, You don't often hear the word excited and federal government spearheading exciting initiatives with the federal government, but this was one that we got behind. And it was, they launched a series of economic strategy tables a couple of years ago, one of which was called the HBEST, which was the Health and Bioscience Economic Strategy Table. And what this was a gathering of some of the best and the brightest minds within the biotech industry, CEOs from all subsectors, as well as accelerators, incubators, et cetera, to talk about growing the bioeconomy as an economic superpower for Canada itself. So the key objectives that this committee of like-minded individuals across Canada came up with were objectives for the strategic development of Canada's bioeconomy. So the 4 objectives they came up with was to grow the industry to 26 billion, double the number of companies to 1,800, and double the high growth firms to 80 of them. And then reestablishing, this entire committee is going to be reestablishing in 2021 in order to start implementing these recommendations. Now, along with these recommendations, it sounds very grandiose, and obviously there were some granular recommendations behind what these growth objectives. And one of them that was pivotal and that we were involved in was the HBEST skills recommendations. First of all, they felt that there should be a skills task force that is liaising with the federal government on an economic development basis, specifically with retooling and upskilling the workforce within the bioeconomy to be ready for that growth. So some of the key talent recommendations. The first one was to focus on work-integrated learning, and this was a big one. Work-integrated learning is a lot of co-ops and interns from the college and universities that get these work placements within biotech companies. When you've got biotech companies that require a very complex set of technical and essential business skills that are required for their work, it's very difficult it's very difficult to have the training mechanisms to be able to inspire that. And one of the best solutions at their disposal was co-op, internships, et cetera, work integrated learning. So the federal government, one of the key recommendations of the HBEST report was to grow this industry widely. And BioTalent Canada, I'm pleased to say, was at the forefront of that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Also to create a digital repository for skilled talent, so that again, labor mobility and that skilled talent, if it exists in PEI, that it could be tapped into in Montreal, et cetera, all across. Focusing on C-suite talent, leadership skills, especially those that lead to commercialization, are key in the bioeconomy. And there's a key deficit. It's one of the key skills deficits within the bioeconomy. This is something that has to be focused on because, as you know, we've had a bit of a brain drain with some of the other countries, including the United States, that have sucked away some of our best and our brightest in terms of being able to commercialize our bioeconomy products. Streamlining immigration issues, we're going to get back to welcoming more than 300,000 educated professionals within our country every year. Those skills can't be lost. And if there are some people like health professionals who can't get licensed in Canada for whatever reason, those science skills are valuable. And we've got to find a way to transfer those skills and reskill those people so that they can make a substantive contribution to the bioeconomy. And then finally, streamlining federal skills development and training programs. That's including establishing training credits for those people who are unemployed or underemployed. So this translated into a large federal spend, which has only been enhanced with the onset of the pandemic. So the first thing that happened with the work integrated learning is the federal government created the Student Work Placement Program. This encompassed in the 2019 budget, 84,000 new paid student work placements across multiple industries, including biotechnology. More than $700 million was committed within the budget. During COVID alone, they committed $15 million for the Bioscience Student Work Placement Program, which BioTalent Canada manages. That was 1,400 placements. As soon as COVID hit, because there is no national talent council like BioTalent Canada for healthcare, the federal government came to us and asked if we would take on an additional 1,500 placements for healthcare across Canada to 2021. So those are 2,900 placements that we took on just in the last 7 months. So the bad news is we did not place 2,900 students combined in those programs. The good news is we've placed more than 3,000. The response to the programs have been extraordinary, no question, in 6 to 7 months. My team has not slept very much, but we're very gratified at the impact we've made. The co-op placements for these programs are 8 weeks or more. During the pandemic, the federal government upped its spend on this. Before, it was only a 50% wage subsidy. They've upped that to 75% for the pandemic period, up to $7,500 max per placement. This is really important because you can understand how this is geared towards small and medium-sized enterprises. Their two biggest challenges are skills, our talent deficits, and capital investment. So you can imagine when some of these organizations that don't have the means, that onboarding a student or a new graduate would be a real chore for them if there's only a laboratory or a team of about 10. Having $7,500 to offset some of those salary expenses can be real lifeblood, and it can give them a real fantastic recruitment and onboarding strategy and a longer term one. So these are for healthcare and bioscience. And now, in the last 5 months, working with post-secondary academics and some of the fastest growing biotech companies, we focused on all of those skills that I mentioned before, that the schools are not in a good position to teach, but that the employers desperately needed. Skills, essential skills, like quality assurance, reading skills, numeracy, being able to go from micrograms to picograms, some of these things in a laboratory setting. Following and writing standard operating procedures, good manufacturing practices, all of this. We created 2 sets of essential and technical skills fundamentals courses that are now available free of charge for all of the people who are participating in the student work placement program. It's a fundamental shift in the way biotech companies can hire, and it's being supported not only by the federal government, because this program was instituted long before COVID, but it's being souped up and given new life and additional impetus because they see it as a key way of kickstarting the bioeconomy as we see some of the pandemic restrictions lessen. So before I hand it back off to Daria, I thought I'd end with a little bit of a story. One of the companies we work with is BioConnect, and it's a bio-identification business out of just outside of Toronto. And they're a really interesting business because they happened on some of our student wage subsidy programs, including the student work placement program. And these are standing with me here, as you can see, I'm the only one with the audacity to wear a tie, are 6 of the individuals that they hired through the wage subsidy program. And what they've had because we're also talking about culture today, right? And how students and young people can affect change within a culture. BioConnect has made it their lease on life to hire millennials, students, as their preferred socioeconomic group for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it's a huge source of diversity and inclusion. And as both of you who know those terms, diversity is one battle where you try to make your team look like Canada, like the community that it serves. The inclusion part is the other part, which is how do they contribute to the culture? How do they make it their own? How do they change it to evolve just by virtue that they're part of it? So what they have done is they've made hiring young people, whether through the wage subsidy program or not, part of their DNA, so that these young people have changed the face of the company. They've changed literally the HR policies, redrafted them to be progressive, more diverse, more inclusive, more geared toward corporate social responsibility, work-life balance, many of the things that make the company that much more appealing to a similar demographic, which is young, vibrant, diverse set of individuals. So it's very interesting how a business decision, that is to tap into wage subsidies, could affect such a cultural change where they embraced that and the total advantages that this new and vibrant group of advantageous talent gave them. So it's just one of the stories that we have with many of our showcase employers. So it's one I'm glad to share with you. I'm looking forward to the other presentations and to what I'm sure will be a lively discussion. Thanks very much again for the invitation, and back over to you, Daria.
Thanks so much, Rob. Really impressive to hear that there were 3,000 student placements, because I can only imagine the benefit to those 3,000 students, but also to all those businesses that had those young people and kind of challenge the status quo in some of those corporations. So congratulations, that's an amazing number to share. We'll give Rob a chance after the 3 panelists have spoken to take any questions you might have. So just a reminder to pop those in the Q&A if you have any. And what I'm going to do now is introduce all 3 speakers, and then they will just pass the mic on to one another. So Jennifer Dochin is the Executive Director of Campus Alberta Neuroscience, where she oversees programs and projects while supporting partnership and network development. She holds a master's degree in political studies and is also a project management professional. Jennifer has over 2 decades of program, project, and strategic management experience at the local, regulatory, provincial, and national levels on 4 continents. She has expertise and training in management, in strategic planning, facilitation, project management, change management, process improvement, and public relations. Anne Babineau is the Director, Prairies with Innovative Medicines Canada, and works with key partners and stakeholders to advocate for an improved environment for the research-based pharmaceutical industry so that research and development activities in Canada develop new medicines and vaccines for patient access. Currently, and over the last 10 years, Anne collaborates with a broad range of stakeholders in Alberta to create better opportunities for researchers, industry, and healthcare professionals to advance prevention and treatment of disease and for the health system improvements. Anne is a certified health executive through the Canadian College of Health Leaders and recently completed a fellowship in health system improvement from the University of Alberta. And our third speaker will be Reg Joseph. Reg was appointed as the CEO of Health City in 2018. He has 20 years experience spanning the health, technology, and investment sectors. At Health City, Reg is focused on developing new pathways for healthcare delivery to drive better health outcomes and economic development for our region. Reg has founded and led local health technology companies, and most recently, he served as the Vice President of Health at Alberta Innovates, managing outgoing investments from the Heritage Fund. In addition to serving on multiple boards of health technology companies, Reg currently serves as chair of the board of BioTalent Canada. He's also a member of the Minister's Advisory Council for the Ministry of Seniors and Housing for the province of Alberta. So welcome to all 3 of our panelists, and I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to start us off.
Thank you so much, Daria. I am just going to share my screen. And hopefully that is all presenting. So thank you so much. And thank you, BioAlberta, for inviting me. And this has been such a fantastic panel already. I have so much to tell you, and there is no way I could do it in 10 minutes. So maybe I'll just give you a little flavor of some of the exciting things that Campus Alberta Neuroscience is up to. So I'm going to include an overview of our entrepreneurship program and how we support innovation culture development and the development of talent and neuroscience in Alberta that has an incredible return on investment within our ecosystem and builds a strong life science cluster. So just a little bit about us. Campus Alberta Neuroscience is an organization that creates a bridge between the universities of Calgary, Lethbridge, and Alberta. It was established in 2012 to catapult research and translational efforts of the academic community through collaboration. Collaboration is one of those really interesting words. So I'm just going to define it for what it means to us. It's really meaningful. It means building those connections. It's a conversation and really listening to our community and partners. Well, through Zoom these days, but really we've missed those in-person connections. We are the only provincial entity dedicated to building a culture of innovation and talent development in Alberta in neuroscience. In order to do this, we really appreciate the funding provided by the Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Innovation, who supports us in these endeavors. So as you can see from this slide, our scope is extensive. Neuroimaging, spinal cord injury, artificial intelligence, and computational neuroscience. Unfortunately, I don't have time to give an overview of each one of those. So I'm going to focus on that entrepreneurship program and how we keep building community and push that science forward. So the list in front of you is some of our wonderful partners. This partnership group helps to advance real-world goals. we used a really unique method to build our innovation program, a community development approach. So using direct input from our neuroscience and innovation community to embed the culture of innovation and training into that program. So first we conducted a scan of what partners were currently connecting with our neuroscientists and maybe as ones that might be able to. We then did some key informant interviews and we did a scan of brain-related companies in Alberta. Normally, if we were in person, I would ask you to guess, but have a number in your mind as to how many you think there'd be neuro-related companies in Alberta. There are over 140 in our province alone. So what we heard from our community was this: that Alberta has an excellent science and idea foundation across all of our campuses, and that life science sector was growing and connecting. But there are a few gaps. So knowledge of the innovation pathways and off-campus resources was lacking. There was a need for mentorship, funding opportunities, and navigation of the stakeholders within the ecosystem, and frankly, sometimes the language of innovation. So as you could see from this slide, we added those things to the program. We built in both short-term stepping stones as well as longer-term investments. So within some of the longer term is our educational component. So trainee support for our entrepreneurs of the future through some of our educational programming, as well as for some of our more established researchers. We supported NeuroNexus and Neuro Alberta Tech and the agility programs to help students learn and grow to learn more about entrepreneurship and commercialization. Our seed grant programs, which to date have supported over 28 companies, as well as mentorship and consultations to connect with entrepreneurs, with those that could provide excellent guidance. This is one of my favorite quotes. "The value of an idea lies in the using of it," by Thomas Edison. Great ideas are wonderful, and getting those ideas out to patients and real people to make real impact is really our goal at Campus Alberta Neuroscience. Outcomes from supporting a culture and developing talent comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. And why do we need it? We need it in our ecosystem for so many reasons. What we heard from Minister Schweitzer yesterday, developing talent to move into tech and innovation is the key to the future of our province. We need to shrink the valley of death for commercialization so that our industries and our companies can thrive. We need to build that robust life science cluster and create a life science venture capital firm that supports Alberta innovation. I'd love to share a story with you. Do we have time for a story? I think we do. So Dr. Deborah Karash, she's a researcher from the University of Calgary. She received $6 million to solve a big challenge. So did you know that it's Epilepsy Awareness Month this month? Well, Dr. Karash received funding for small molecule therapeutics for Dravet syndrome and treatment-resistant epilepsy. And she's also a CAN-seeded grant award winner. And she just raised another $2 million for her company, Path Diagnostic, and will be finishing up her $4 million US raise over the next quarter. She's also supported by a variety of other partners, Creative Destruction Lab, Calgary Innovates. And her work will be making a real difference to a lot of people. And I think she really highlights that building talent and culture shows real fantastic outcomes. So these are some of the outcomes from Campus Alberta Neuroscience. We are very much driven by impact and these outcomes and supported by evaluation. So as you can see, these are the outcomes from our very first year, and they were very encouraging. In our first year of our program, $8 million leveraged, 7 companies created, 1,000 people trained, and collaboration with over 120 stakeholders. And I have a bit of surprise for all of you. I'm delighted to share preliminary outcome measures from last year. So just hot off the press, so new that I didn't have time to make this slide pretty. So this includes really the impact of COVID. So we provided training and support to over 2,250 people. 12 companies were created because of our support, 42 jobs were supported, just under $14 million of funding generated. And this is the little statistic that I really am quite proud of, is that 100% of our of the people that we worked with said that we made an impact on their company. One of the quotes from our recipients was this: "The support from Campus Alberta Neuroscience was integral in enabling us to pursue our work. The additional funding allowed us to secure and maintain the employment of key high-quality personnel, and without whom we would not be able to proceed." So how was this all accomplished? Well, it was a somewhat unique review process where we use entrepreneurs as well as scientists to review our grants and make recommendations. We also have a really diverse advisory committee that provides us with guidance, and we really try to connect and collaborate with our partners. So ultimately, it's a collaboration and partnership with the government, industry, and academia that makes a world of difference. So, as I said from the beginning, we have really so much to share, and I personally would be very interested in having a conversation. So start a conversation with us. Let's build our connections, continue to build that culture, and support talent development in Alberta. Thank you.
I guess I'm up next. Thank you, Jennifer, and congratulations on the tremendous work that you've achieved over the past year. I'm wondering how that's looking to you all. Is my screen shared?
It is not in presentation mode.
Okay, let me try that. How about that? Is that better?
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for your help. Again, Jennifer, congratulations. And thank you, BioAlberta, for asking me to join the panel. And I'm really pleased to share with you some of the wonderful ways Innovative Medicines Canada's member companies support and develop talent in the life sciences sector in Alberta. I want to start with the why. Why would these global multinational companies take the effort and expense to help develop talent in the life sciences sector? Well, first, there's an element of corporate responsibility. Our companies are successful and there is a responsibility to give back. But then it also offers a virtuous cycle. There's world-class science in Alberta with excellence in diabetes, virology, oncology. I really could go on. Developing talent helps build the sector with academic research spinning off into Alberta's entrepreneurs, with Alberta's companies hiring Albertans. So what's in it for our companies? Perhaps developing that talent leads to the next great discovery, the next incremental improvement in current therapies, a made in Alberta anchor company. Who knows, really? But what I do know is if the talent isn't nurtured and developed, it's not likely to happen. Alberta's education system and business supports do a wonderful job in creating the world-class science I just spoke of. And it may not be obvious the significant contribution our members make to talent development in Alberta, from elementary to entrepreneurs to executives. I'll give you a few examples. A member company, Amgen, is offering STEM programming to elementary kids through the Let's Talk Science program. They offer hundreds of hours of volunteer expertise to the program. In experiential learning, our member company, Sanofi, for the past 25 years, has run a competition called Sanofi BioGenius, where high school students are matched with post-secondary professors and their labs working on real projects in real life. They are asked to prove their concept. And I can tell you the Alberta competition is very strong, and Alberta shows very well in the national competition. In skill development, I'll give some examples from post-secondary. Servier's $1 million donation to open the virtual cardiac center in the Mazankowski Alberta Health Institute has helped to train 5 postdoctoral research fellows and many other doctoral, master's, medical, undergraduate students in multidisciplinary projects at the intersection of medicine, engineering, and computer science. The trainees from the Servier Center have then moved on to find executive and other positions in startup companies in the healthcare technology sector. Another one of our companies, Janssen, supports academic research projects in Alberta. And those projects create opportunity for Alberta researchers. It helps build skill sets as they complete the projects, also leading to publications and career advancement. I'm going to talk a little more about working integrated learning a little later, but I'll give a quick example now where our company Gilead supports numerous internships at their Edmonton facility from Alberta schools. In fact, 30% of their workforce is from U of A and NAIT alone. And once they work at Gilead, and really any member company for that matter, they have career development opportunities like exchange programs to the US and all over the world. And we've experienced that people who work for our global companies, well, they also leave our global companies and come back to Canada and Alberta and use their experiences to develop their own startups. And we're pleased with that. For executive training, Pfizer Canada was integral in starting the Executive Institute at Edmare to successfully scale and grow Canadian life science companies, growing them into strong multi-product anchors. Pfizer and Edmare know that it requires leaders to think in more complex, systematic, and strategic ways. I think I could use a little bit of that. The Institute provides senior executives who have at least 10 years experience in the life sciences sector, provides them the next level of training to achieve their goals. And in just 2 years so far, 4 executives from Alberta have been part of this world-class program. And a couple of tools and resources our members provide in talent development. The BioGenius program I spoke of earlier from Sanofi, they've expanded it this year and now includes grants for high schools. And these grants will help high schools renovate and upgrade their labs to enable students' learning and love of science. Gilead also provided $500,000 to University of Alberta labs to upgrade. And even during COVID, they provided $100,000 to help provide safe online lab skills training. And now this initiative, Boosting Biotech, is one I'm really proud of because it involves all of our member companies. Boosting Biotech is an initiative and a collaboration of BioAlberta, Innovative Medicines Canada, the Government of Alberta, and it has support from Western Economic Diversification. The goal is to support innovation and commercialization of discoveries by Alberta researchers and small and medium enterprises in the life sciences sector. The initiative is providing work integrated learning and skill development. And I have to thank BioAlberta. You have been amazing stewards of this initiative, and congratulations on its success. The initiative has 2 components. Internships provide matching opportunities for companies and students. And what's unique about these internships is that they're fully funded through the supports of Innovative Medicines Canada members and Rob BioTalent Canada. So thank you for that. There have been 3 intakes in the initiative. Each year, those intakes have doubled. I'm rounding numbers, but in the first intake, we matched 10 companies and 10 students. Second intake, 20 companies and 20 students. And the final intake is underway, and we believe we'll be able to support about 40 companies and students. And I'm really proud of that. The companies involved are varied. They're pharmaceutical, medical device, health data, and analytics, for example, and they're all Alberta-based companies. The students' roles are just as varied. There's lab techs, engineers, business analysts, quality assurance, regulatory, machine learning, and chemists. It's amazing the breadth of opportunities in Alberta's life sciences sector. Boosting Biotech also has a mentoring component where our industry's executives and experts share their expertise and advice with students, researchers, and entrepreneurs. Even during COVID, Pfizer and Novartis took the opportunity in 2020 to provide web-based mentoring sessions. And so far, our outcomes have been impressive. There's job-ready students, companies are getting staffing help, and happily for some, it's shown the benefit of creating full-time jobs. So I'm going to end with the opportunity. COVID has been challenging, there is really no doubt about that. But there's been a silver lining. It's shone a light on the importance of the life sciences sector. I believe there's no other sector that can boast the dual benefit of protecting the health and the wealth of Canadians. There's been no better opportunity to show what this sector can do. And I believe under this light, the sector will grow. We need to be ready. We need the talent. Alberta has the opportunity. Let's seize it. So over to you, Reg.
Thank you very much, Anne, and thank you, Jennifer and Rob, for your remarks as well. I'll just get my screen sharing up. All right, I know that I'm the last one before our panel, so I will try and zip through these relatively quickly. Just a little bit on Health City. As some of you may know, Health City is a Canadian incorporated not-for-profit organization. We have a dual mandate to drive health outcomes and economic development, and we do this by deploying large platforms into healthcare, such as virtual care, home health monitoring, remote-based diagnostic imaging, and so forth. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Health City, I won't spend time on it here. We do have a publication that was recently submitted and published in Healthcare Management Forum, and you can learn all about Health City there. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the health economy and some of the challenges that we're facing, and more importantly, some of the opportunities. So the level of disruption that we have seen in the media sector, in transportation, even in banking, I can text you money, which I couldn't do a couple of years ago. That level of disruption is actually happening in healthcare. But unfortunately, it's not happening so much so in Canada. But it is taking the world by storm. And the companies in what I'm calling the new health economy company are really bringing disruption to the sector. And as you can see, the investments that have gone into these companies is significant. Last year, during pandemic, over $20 billion worth of investments have gone into these companies internationally. And when you look at the technology platforms that drive many of these companies, over 70% of these companies are being driven by one or more of these platforms, either artificial intelligence, machine learning, extended reality, which is a combination of augmented and or virtual reality, as well as virtual care or the Internet of Things. And as many of you know in our audience, that we have these strengths in abundance in Alberta. So let's talk a little bit about the talent challenge. When we look at our educational rankings, and I know Rob touched on this a little bit, Canada scores really well. We do really well on report cards where it looks at our training capabilities and the talent that we're producing from our academic institutions. Rob mentioned this with respect to we do really well in terms of the theory of science, but not necessarily so well on the business of science. And so when we look at the key requirements, talent is always high on the list in terms of what is a critical success factor. And what's interesting, and again, Rob touched on this a little bit, which is we have very high youth unemployment, particularly in the life sciences sector. And yet there's active recruitment going on internationally to bring in this talent as well. So, you know, while we are definitely enhanced by international immigration into our country in terms of bringing wonderful talent and capabilities, we also have a lot of that talent within our nation as well. And what we really need to be able to do is to leverage the strength of the talent and skills that we have here that can then translate into innovative opportunities within our companies in the life sciences sector. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of platforms that Health City is working on that's helping to bridge that gap, helping to look at work integrated learning and providing those projects that are industry driven, that enable students that are coming out of academia to plug in and get experience, real world experience, if you will, in the high-tech sector related to sort of life sciences. So the first that I'd like to talk to you about is something called synthetic data. What we're really doing here is democratizing the access to health data. As many of you will know, one of our biggest challenges around data is privacy. And existing techniques that we're using, de-identification of data or anonymization of data, has proven that there's some challenges with it in terms of the ability to re-engineer that data. And so hence, as many of you know, many of our provinces have been a little bit reticent to be able to make health data, even though it's de-identified or anonymized, readily available. In Alberta, we've been able to deploy the first ever health data set through synthetic data. We worked with 6 different opioid databases and synthesized them into a form that can be used in a way that's safe. We've been working with the Institute of Health Economics, the School of Public Health at the University of Alberta, some industrial partners, and more importantly, the Privacy Commissioner's Office in Alberta. What we've been able to demonstrate at the highest level is that synthetic data is very predictive in terms of its correlation to real data. And more importantly, it is very difficult to re-engineer. The re-engineering ability is less than 0.0019, which is orders of magnitude lower than anonymized data or de-identified data. What's really exciting about this, though, is the training capabilities. So now what we're looking to do in concert working with the Privacy Commissioner's Office is, can we make these synthetic data sets accessible without ethics requirement? And so that's the goal that we're working towards. So we've done a pilot validation test, and the second test is now going to be to incorporate industry. But the real opportunity here is academia. If we could enable these synthetic data sets to be available for students to start using that, then we have really been able to enable the power of data science, not only in Alberta, but across the nation. And this was actually a solution to a problem that has been brought up around using artificial intelligence and machine learning. As many of you know, AI and ML training and data work that we do there, it's not typical hypothesis-driven research. You actually kind of need the data first to look at relationships, partnerships, collaborate, and correlations, to then be able to draw some conclusions from there. So what we're doing right now is we're working with the University of Alberta to see how we can engage a wide range of data scientists to be able to get access, particularly students, to get real world evidence training on synthetic data sets for companies. And so that's a sort of a work integrated learning opportunity here. And the next one that I'll talk to you a little bit about is extended reality. We've got a partnership between a number of post-secondary institutions where we have a platform that enables the sharing of extended reality content amongst not only institutions, which is our first iteration, but then secondly, after that, also with industry. And we have a protege program where we have students working out of these institutions that you see here on the slide directly with industry on real life projects. And so these are a couple of opportunities that we have where we've created platforms tied in with our post-secondary institutions, tied in with getting the talent out of the next generation, working on real life industry projects with the up and coming technology platforms. And with that, I'll end it and we can go back to our panel.
Well, thank you very much to all our panelists. I think you've given us some good ideas and information on which to springboard into our discussion. Again, a reminder to those of you who are listening in, if you have any questions, comments, please pop those into the Q&A and we'll get to them shortly. So I'm going to start with a question actually for all of our panelists, and we'll just go round table here a little bit. We were all very pleased last week to see in the budget the announcement of a pharmaceutical and life sciences strategy. What advice would you provide to government officials around talent development to inform such a strategy? And Anne, why don't I start with you?
All right, well, thanks, Daria. And yes, we were very pleased with that announcement and what Minister Schweitzer had to say yesterday. My advice would be collaborate with the whole of the sector. That means academia, that means the local small SMEs, the global companies. Government for sure needs to be at the table, the business development organizations, the associations, and I would encourage government to think long term. The ecosystems in Quebec and Ontario didn't pop up overnight. They had long-term vision, building the cluster, 10 years at least. And so we need to think longer term. There's definitely some quick wins that can happen, but to build the cluster the way we would all love to see it built in Alberta, it takes a long-term and sustained effort.
Reg, I see you nodding your head. Would you like to add to that?
Yeah, sure. What I'd like to emphasize more is the opportunity to actually partner with industry. So one of the challenges we have in the life sciences sector, particularly when it comes to health sciences, in many other sectors, when we look at challenges, whether it's say the energy sector, the environmental sector, or what have you, industry is quite often at the table. That's not often the case in the life sciences side. And so we've had a bit of a wall in our mind in terms of how does the public service work to address challenges and not necessarily bringing industry to the table. We can do that in a very transparent way. We've shown that we can do that in other sectors. We need to do that in the life sciences sector as well. When we're looking at innovative solutions for our province or our nation, we know, particularly when I think of the company that you're involved with, Daria, or the companies that Innovative Medicines Canada represents, you have global expertise there. You've seen many other ecosystems and many other environments that we could learn from here in Canada as well as in Alberta. So I would say look to industry as a key source of innovation and ideas that we can then adopt right here in our province, in our nation. And that's something we really need to grab onto to be able to push this sector forward.
Fabulous. Thanks, Reg. Jennifer, your thoughts on
I absolutely agree with Ed and Reg on the need to collaborate. Everyone from not-for-profits to academia to industry, that this is something that we all need to move towards. I think the thing that if I had this ability to provide some guidance, I would say it really needs to be resourced. that this initiative needs to have funding. It needs to have people resourced within the government as well as externally, that those resources needs to be shared with all of those users that I just mentioned.
Fabulous. And Rob, appreciate your thoughts on this question.
Sure. You know, it's very interesting what I find, and I fully support the initiative. The federal government also has to realize, and I know my colleagues will agree with me, that they're part of this. That this can't be just, well, we want to get a pharmaceutical life, you guys go do that. They have to provide the groundwork, the legislative and regulatory environment so that these companies can get involved and commercialize. There's no question of that. That's one of it. That's a fundamental part of it. That a lot of the life science associations, including Medicines Canada and BioAlberta, have so ably brought to the forum, because I'm a talent guy, so I can give you the talent, but these people have to have somewhere to work. Right, because otherwise we're just building a field of dreams. The other piece that's all this too is that we said there's a fundamental divide between what, as I mentioned, where the secondary institutions teach and what the businesses need. That's also because there's a bit of a lack of alignment. We are the most educated vertical in the world. To truly be an innovator requires a master's degree or a PhD. Entrepreneurship has to be identified and flourished and nurtured from day one. And a lot of times the universities, not all of them are aligned that their responsibility is not only to give kids an education. There is a fundamental responsibility to the economy to find these kids a job. So getting them the business skills, allowing them to get out of the lab and go to professional development and get those essential skills and everything else, that has to be from the top down. That has been a fundamental disjoint in many of our universities, where the community colleges have been very much more aligned in terms of they're aligned from top to bottom to get kids jobs. And I think there is a bit of a disjoint. Some universities, don't get me wrong, and I'm not painting them all with the same brush, do this exceptionally well. But there are other universities that the co-op and career education centers struggle to get kids into the programs because the GPA is too high, or because that they're too busy in that to gather those essential skills that are going to get them that framework. So that whole alignment piece, where this is a huge treadmill where industry has to align with the life sciences community, with government legislation, with post-secondary academia, and then finally the teachers and the students. That's the alignment piece that we haven't gotten. And if it, you know, it's an old adage, a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. And we've had a couple of weak links in there. So that's what has to be fixed.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to build on that a little bit and put a question forward to Jennifer, and that is, so what role should the academic institutions play in addressing the skills gap?
Well, I was very much nodding with Rob, because I mean, the academic institutions very much, as Rob said, builds those skills for moving forward, for nurturing a industry or a discipline. And so being able to listen to the economy, as Rob said, but also listening to all of the other stakeholders like not-for-profits and industry, and really building on those skill sets. I kind of have a personal philosophy that you could train most things, and that if there's a willingness to learn, that most people can really grasp those. And especially when there is like a desire for a particular industry, for jobs and skills, then there's a really good motivating rationale that people will go into.
Any of the others want to comment on this as well?
I'll jump in. I think it's really, it behooves our academic institutions, particularly our research-based institutions, to start working much more closely with industry, not only in terms of research collaborations, which our research institutions do quite well at, but particularly, as Rob and Jennifer were noting, in terms of training our talent and making sure that these folks are job ready. When we look at the life sciences, traditionally, our research-based institutions really focus on academic training to become academics. And as we know, there are not sufficient positions for those individuals all to take academic positions. And quite frankly, we don't want them to do that. We really want to be able to drive economic growth in this sector. And to do that, we need institutions that are training students for jobs. And so that's where it's really incumbent upon these institutions to do so, because as Rob indicated, there is a sweet spot for the research-based institutions to play here, because the level of education you need to be able to drive forward strong innovations in the life sciences does actually require you to have a fair bit of training. So it's not easily filled by technical schools. You need to do that at that level. But what's missing is that work exposure, understanding the business environment, and being able to hit the ground running when you graduate. And so really working closely with the life sciences sector. And I know some of the projects that you talked about that Innovative Medicines Canada supports, and is great, but the academic institutions really need to take up that guard and say, okay, here's how we're going to train the next generation of innovators and how they're going to contribute to our economy. So it's something that through governments and influence, we need to have our research-based institutions really look to training our talent towards.
Thanks for that, Reg. Question for you, Rob, has come through from the participants. How can we address student skill awareness gaps so that life sciences graduates can succeed in non-life science companies, so that when the life science companies need them, we have them available?
You know, it's a great question. I meet a lot of students, and you'd be surprised how many times when I ask them what they'd like to do in biotech, they recite the title of their thesis. And I have to remind them, you know, you're not probably going to be doing that, right? So the other thing that's really interesting to me in biotech, and I beat up on the students a little bit, and there's a good reason for that. We graduate some of the best researchers in the world, no question that we do. If so many of them would apply some of those research skills to the job search. There is an ample amount of labor market intelligence. We produce it, Alberta produces it, all sorts of the place. There are, on any given day, 250 jobs on my job board that they can take. This plethora of research. Take a look into LinkedIn, but a lot of the times they're not taking a look. There's commonality to the skills that are required here. The skills gaps, and by the way, what's very interesting is that sometimes we forget, especially because we're in a science program, that those essential skills, those skills that they got by being behind a McDonald's counter or being a camp counselor in summer, those are hugely valuable to business development and marketing people, et cetera. And they sometimes shortchange themselves by not putting them on their resume when they're looking for a CV, or trying to bring them out in questions at the interview. So there's a lot more research that they could do that is out there and equally freely available to them that they need to do to pinpoint their job search. When you see the words quality control mentioned in 60 out of the 200 jobs on a job board, and that gives you a hint that that's a demand skill. Beyond that, they should be using tools like LinkedIn to find out people who are working in some of the companies they want to work at. These are not trade secrets. They'll let them know what jobs are coming up. They'll let them know what's a really big projects for them that are coming up. You know, a lot of these kids take 100 resumes, change the company name and the job title, and send them out to 100 companies, which is like, you know, throwing 100 darts at a dartboard without ever looking and hoping one hits. And what they really need to do is to take 10 tailored letters and resumes that are tailored, that shows their skills to these companies, using words that are on their website of their value cultures, different things, because that's what these companies are trying to, especially the ones that are using strategic HR as a business objective. So I say the research skills they already have are great. It's nothing more than they need, but they just needed to apply it to a different field, and that's finding a job.
Finding a job is not always so easy, is it? We have a question, Anne, from the audience that I'm going to direct to you. University students from the science faculty should be encouraged to take internships with industry so that they are ready for the workplace when they graduate. Is that something that's in the process of implementation? And I'm thinking perhaps you can speak here to some of the successes with the Boosting Biotech initiative.
Absolutely. Yes, our member companies at Innovative Medicines have a wide array of internship opportunities available. I mentioned Gilead here in Alberta. that does internship programs. Our Boosting Biotech initiative is something we're really proud of. It benefits Alberta companies, Alberta students, and gets Alberta results, and that's pretty impressive, I believe. We do offer mentoring from our member companies, and look for opportunities where we can help students, not only in internships but also in areas where they're looking for expertise, where they're looking for knowledge, and even as Rob described, where they're looking for advice on how to get that next job. Our industry is looking at that, and Daria, frankly, I think you'd know better than me what each individual company is doing for internships in your own company, but broadly as an industry and as an industry association. I know that work is happening.
Perfect. Anyone else want to weigh in on the question around internships? Okay, I'm going to put forward another question from our audience, and that is, how can we prevent young university graduates from leaving the province? We have so many brilliant minds, but we risk losing them. What can we do to keep them in Alberta? Jennifer, why don't... Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead, Anne.
All right.
Sure.
We need a strong ecosystem. We need a strong cluster. Students can't be here for that one dream job. They aren't going to stay if their only opportunity is in one or two companies. They need to have a vision for their future that includes a more robust cluster of opportunities for them so they can advance in their career. I'm not suggesting, they bounce around from company to company, but there has to be a healthy realization that there needs to be more than one opportunity. Otherwise, they are going to leave the province. They are going to look for those opportunities that help them grow. Hopefully, they come back once they've had that experience and do their own startups. But if we want to keep them, we have to give them a breadth of opportunity.
Rob.
Yeah, here's where I get to beat up the employers a little bit too. You want to keep them, be better bosses. It's true, because the bottom line is that, look, there's some battles we can't win. We cannot provide right now the ecosystem that's in the Boston area. We understand that. However, we're graduating a bunch of students and a bunch of young people whose values are fundamentally different than some of the traditional people that have been running biotech companies, green companies, companies with good corporate social responsibilities, companies that allow them the real sense of inclusivity. If you want students to say, give them a voice, let them help influence decisions, even if it's just social. It is so powerful when these people feel heard and seen. They won't leave the province simply for a $5,000 signing bonus if they feel that they're a fundamental foundation of this company. We've seen that more and more, and the problem is a lot of biotech companies, they ignore good HR practices and good management practices to their peril, where they lose talent that they otherwise could have retained. Now, I totally agree with Anne. You have to have the ecosystem, you have to have the employment, you have to have the companies. But to have a good company lose a good employee for a dumb reason, like not asking them their opinion in employee engagement, or helping them design a total reward system, or asking them what's important to them in terms of how the company acts as a corporate, in terms of corporate social responsibility, that's a dumb way to lose talent. And biotech companies are smarter than that. So they need to up their game a bit, because we're also struggling with talent that's that horizontal talent, sales, marketing, leadership, right? Some of that doesn't necessarily have to have a PhD in molecular biology to work in a biotech company. And the point is that those, you take a look at the Shopifys of the world, and some of them, boy, talk about progressive HR, they're going to eat our lunch if we don't up our game. So that's the other thing, is biotech companies have to get a little bit better in terms of how they treat people.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Jennifer.
I really think that absolutely Rob and Anne hit it out of the park. The only thing that I would probably add is that there is also a function of awareness. When I speak to some of my science students, they're like, I don't know what my transferable skills are. I've been in a lab. How do I work that into industry? Can I do something that is outside of academia? And I don't even know what to search for. How do I frame my resume so that it is targeted for a different industry? So it is one of those things that I think that there may be some awareness both from the employer as well as within the academic institutions to build some of those skills for building that awareness.
Thank you for that. And Reg, I'm guessing you have a thought on what we can do to keep those young minds in Alberta.
Yeah, just a quick thought. I mean, I think the other panelists have covered most of the key things that we should be looking at. I think that there is a role here because we don't have a mature ecosystem on this side of things. We don't have a ton of companies, for example. That's where, so how do we focus on our SMEs? And our small and medium-sized companies are asking students or new prospective candidates to take a risk on their company, while vice versa, the companies need to take a risk on them. And so I think that's where there is an opportunity to work with not only the academic institutions in terms of fine-tuning the training that they're receiving, but then also that's where some of the programs, for example, that BioTalent is putting out there in terms of being able to de-risk that first candidate coming in for the company to do so. And I think that when we look at some of those programs, actually, Alberta is getting better, but we've actually trailed behind other jurisdictions in terms of being able to place students in companies where there is actually funding available. So I would highly recommend that. I get companies coming to me all the time saying, we actually can't find the talent that we need. And I say, well, I think you need to be a little bit more creative because I don't think you're necessarily looking in the right places. So that's where we take some of Rob's advice and Jennifer's advice in terms of where the students need to be positioning themselves, but then the companies can also take a little bit of that responsibility and say, okay, hey, let's be a little bit broader on how we're looking at talent. What really are we looking for in terms of that talent? And can we take a risk? Are there ways to help de-risk by taking that on? And then being part of that community and saying, let's build it here. It does take the whole value chain to be able to do that. And there is some responsibility on the companies as well.
I'm going to ask each of you to answer the following question as we come to the close of this session. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give a young person who has a dream to work and contribute in the life sciences? Reg, I'm going to go with you first.
That is a really good one. The advice that I typically do give is to actually be broad in terms of what you're really looking for. The challenge that most science students have is, and Rob mentioned this, is that they're focusing on the science. They focus on their thesis. They're quite excited about the exact science that they've done. But if you actually take a step back to say, what do you really enjoy doing outside of science? Then you can start looking at how do you start developing a career from that.
Great advice. Jennifer?
I think my advice is always one of look long term and look at the outcomes and the meaningful impact that you'll be making from your role. And from that, you'll always find that spark to keep you moving.
Fabulous. Anne?
Persevere. Try and try again. And if you are a researcher looking for that next great discovery in the life sciences sector, remember it takes 10,000 molecules to get to one product to market in our industry anyway. So keep at it, persevere.
Perfect. And Rob, final piece of advice to a young person with a passion.
You know, finding a job is like running away from a bear. You don't have to be the fastest person. You just have to be faster than the person who's trying to run away as well, right? It's the same idea with working for a job. You just have to be better than the other ones that are looking. So to me, if I would have to give one, be shameless. Tell everybody that you know on LinkedIn, everything that you are looking, that let your smile be your jacket. Make sure your personality comes out, because people want to work with people they like. And be shameless. Use every opportunity to look for that first opportunity, and then make the most of it. Make sure that you look at that first opportunity is so important, because you can glean so much experience and so many new network opportunities and so many new linkages from that.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for your insights and your perspectives, and for your really honest and genuine feedback and advice. During this forum, we've heard how access to talent is truly a key component to businesses succeeding and staying in Alberta. We've also heard that talent development is a priority in Alberta, and today's session, I think, was a really important building block in working together to support that objective. It's really encouraging to see so many stakeholders actively engaged in creating new opportunities and initiatives, but also the willingness and interest in working with government to build this ecosystem. One of those initiatives is the BioAlberta Talent Hub, and I know I, for one, am looking forward to learning more about it as it's developed and as it gains momentum. So with that, I'd like to thank BioAlberta, Rob and Trish, for hosting this panel. With so many, well, we've got 3 vaccines approved now in Canada, more on the horizon. I really do hope that I get to really see you very soon. And thank you, everyone. And over to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Daria, and thank you to Jennifer, to Anne, to Rob, and to Reg for a phenomenal panel and discussion. I want to throw in a piece of advice to those young students who are looking to get a job out of the biotech industry. Get involved and get active. I know when we can meet, Reg and Health City do events that they are always looking for students and sponsors to come to the table, go sit at a table, meet people, talk to them, find out what it's really like. BioAlberta events are open to members. Sometimes there's a small charge for non-members, depending on the event. But if you're a student and want to learn more about us and learn more about the ecosystem, we'll get you in the room and come be a part of it. There's groups on campus. There's Innovate Calgary. There's the Science to Business Network, or Student to Business Network. There are tons of opportunities, but you have to take that first step. So get involved, be active, and be seen. So that's the end of our policy forum for 2021. It's the end of the forum, but not the end of the journey. BioAlberta is committed to working with our ecosystem and advance the ideas we've been talking about for the past 2 days into credible, coordinated policy initiatives, ideas, options and offers to take to government and industry to build our life sciences sector and our ecosystem. To do that, we want your help as participants. We want you to, first of all, fill out the feedback form so we can learn what worked well over the past 2 days, what we can do better, and areas that you're interested in over and above the panels that we talked about today. We want you to stay engaged. Watch bioalberta.com for new content and initiatives. There will be a lot happening on the Talent Hub over in the next few months. We're working with BioTalent Canada to make it easier for you to access the Petri dish. So stay tuned for that. There's good information on boosting biotech, and I can't thank our partners enough with the Alberta government, with Innovative Medicines Canada on making that a success, and for BioTalent Canada for coming in and helping leverage their programs to provide that support to students, but also to SMEs to make sure they can attract and give those experiential learning to those folks. We want you to raise your hand if there's an area you're interested in. Speak up. let us know. Promise we're going to use your time and your passion appropriately. As I mentioned, be active. Life sciences is a big network. Don't be afraid to find a way to get involved. And finally, we're a member services organization, so I have to say it, become a member. You don't have to be a member to contribute, but we do work with our members a little more regularly. It's low cost. We have a student and individual rate. And if that's a barrier, as I said, especially if you're a student and want to get involved, give us a call and we'll work with you. Maybe we can trade that for a few volunteer hours or something at an event like this. And if you're not a member here and you're intrigued by what you saw, we'll be happy to work with you to show you what the value is moving forward. I want to just once again thank our sponsors for the forum. This is the first time that BioAlberta has done a policy forum. Initial feedback is that it has been great. We couldn't do it without the talent that's been on the panels, and we couldn't do it without the support of our sponsors. Merck is a panel sponsor of the AMR session. Our gold sponsors, MedTech Plus, Innovative Medicines Canada, Novartis, Gilead, Silver, Medtronic, MedTech Canada, and then Pfizer as bronze sponsor with 360 Public Affairs and BioTalent Canada. Our partners are important to us. They advise us. We couldn't do our policy work and engagement without them. Again, our panelists have been just phenomenal. When we started to put this together, I had no idea that we were going to be able to get this level of perspective and this level of engagement. And I will thank each and every one of them, but I'll thank them collectively. Final thanks goes out to the team here at BioAlberta. I come up with crazy ideas like this, and there's people that make it work. And we couldn't have done this event without people like Trish Filovich and Christy Fair, who have kept all the pieces together, made sure that the panels were coordinated, that they had worked together, they knew each other, they knew how to find the right buttons with the screens. And furthermore, I know that Aaron Burns, who is new to us, and Joshua Lee, who's been out telling people about the value and encouraging the content. We could not do it without any of you. So I raise a glass to that team, and one day I hope that team does get to meet in person. So as Daria said, we're close. I hear we're all going to be vaccinated in Alberta by June. We'll see. I'm hoping for it, but if not, let's look forward to our chance to get together collectively and in small groups, really dedicate your passion and your time to building this ecosystem, building a strong presence in it, and we'll find each other over the coming months. Thank you very much for your time over the last couple of days. Be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you soon.